So, to be considered a pro motion designer, you have to really give your project a final polish, is what I call it. And that's where you add some final finishing touches to your project to really push it over the edge and really make it look pro. Well, in today's video podcast, we're going to talk about two things you can do to polish your motion design. Hey there, and welcome to the Motion Science video podcast. My name is Cameron, and today we're talking about polish. That's what I call it. Some people call it finishing. I've heard polish around the block, but I've always called it polish. Polish to me is when you've got your project 80% there, 90% there, maybe 75% there, and you need to take it to that next level. Okay. And that's what polish is. And there's several different techniques you can do to finish off a piece. I teach a lot of this in Stylecraft and a little bit of it in ProFlows Plus. But what we're going to do here is we're going to polish off this piece. Okay. So what I've got here is I've just got a space background image here. I've got a particle system from Trapcode Particular that's just flying at us. And essentially, this is supposed to look like these really fast particles flying past the camera in space. Like maybe it's space debris from a comet or something, but it flies past us really quickly. And right now, it looks okay. I wouldn't even say it looks great. It just good. It just looks okay, right? So if I slow it down, you can see here we've got a camera, we've got our particle system, and we've got a background image. The camera is just slightly pushing in, which is why you can see when we get to the very end here that there's a jump back just right there. So the particles, like I said, there's a couple of particle systems happening in this one instance of Trapcode Particular. Some different colors, some greens, some blues, some whites. That helps to add to the realism once we polish this off. Okay, so like I said, right now it doesn't look so hot, but there's two things we can do. The first thing we can do is we can add motion blur to our particle systems. Now, if you're just animating systems inside of After Effects, like animating layers and things like that, all you have to do is literally come down here and turn on motion blur. You click this button here and boom, there it is. You want to make sure it's turned on here as well. But inside of Trapcode Particular, sometimes you have to come down here into the rendering tab and you have to make sure that motion blur is turned on for the comp settings. I don't remember if it's default off or if it's on or comp settings, but I have it set to comp settings, which is right here. Okay. So again, if I turn off motion blur, that's how it did look. With it turned on, it looks a lot more interesting. So if I preview this, you're going to see all of a sudden, just really quick, let me play it one more time without motion blur. And here is with motion blur. So there we go. There is with motion blur. It's already night and day difference. This reminds me of like a Star Wars, light speed tunnel, something like that. So it's night and day between no motion blur and motion blur, right? Just one very simple application, one very simple technique of just turning motion blur on, and it looks like this. So the other thing we're going to do though is we are going to pause it right here, and we're going to open up our camera, and we're just going to turn on depth of field. I've set up some aperture and focus distance ahead of time, just to give it a little bit of depth where I want it to look. I'm going to turn it on, and wow, look at that, right? Look at that. That is awesome looking. That completely changes it. So now it looks like we have a lot of depth in our image. We've got the background is all of a sudden it's out of focus. So there's no depth of field. There's depth of field, right? So we've got motion blur turned on, got depth of field turned on, and let's preview this. And there we go. That is with depth of field turned on. So now we've got motion blur and depth of field added to our very simple particle systems. And you can see what a difference, what a polish this makes on top of our particle systems. That's what I got for you in today's video podcast. As always, I hope you learned something. Always think about applying motion blur and camera depth of field if you are using a camera. If you're not using a camera, there's also other ways you can add depth of field to really add some dimension to your motion design. Until next time, I'm Cameron, and this is Motion Science. See ya.